My husband locked the hotel room door and said, "It's just one night, honey. Think about our future." He sold me to his boss in exchange for a promotion. But when that man opened the envelope from my purse, he ran down the hallway in his underwear, screaming in terror. I wasn't the victim, I was the revenge. Hi, my dear friends. How wonderful to have you here with me today. Come on in, get comfortable. My door is always open for a good chat. My name is Sandra Mae Adams. I'm 78 years old, and I now live here in Asheville, North Carolina, in a simple little house full of love. I was born in Burlington, Vermont, in the freezing cold of winter, but life brought me here, to the mountain air and peaceful southern charm. Right now, I'm in my kitchen preparing cheese biscuits to sell tomorrow at the farmer's market. Look here, I have about 30 pounds of flour, sharp cheddar cheese, and that warm oven smell that makes anyone's mouth water. My fingers are covered in dough, and I'll tell you, there's nothing better than kneading biscuits early in the morning, with the sun streaming through the kitchen window and the radio playing classic country music. I started making cheese biscuits to sell about 20 years ago, when I retired from my accounting office. I thought, Sandra, you worked your whole life with numbers. Now it's time to work with your hands and your heart. And that's how I was reborn as a baker. Every Saturday morning, there I am at the farmer's market with my little booth, selling warm cheese biscuits, cornbread, and butter cookies. People know me. They know that Ms. Sandra arrives early and brings the best. My kitchen is tiny, but it's organized just the way I like it. I have that 4-burner gas stove that's been with me for about 20 years, the white refrigerator that hums quietly, and this wooden table where I work, which is full of history. On the walls, I have some kitchen signs with phrases like, "In this kitchen we cook with love," and also photos of my grandchildren, who are my greatest joy. And you, my dear friends watching me now, tell me in the comments, what little town in America are you watching from? And tell me too, what time of day did you find Grandma Sandra's video? Was it early morning with your coffee? After lunch during your break? Or at night, already tucked into bed? I read all the comments, you know? And I'm so happy to know where you're from and when you take time to listen to this grandma tell her stories. Let's create a chain of love. Tell me, okay? Oh, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, click that red button down there, okay? And turn on the notification bell. Because every week I'm here, bringing life stories, stories of overcoming, and I really want you not to miss any. But today, my dears, I came to tell you a story that I kept in my heart for many years. A story that still hurts when I remember it, but that also made me the strong woman I am. It's a story about betrayal, about humiliation, but also about revenge. A just revenge, a revenge that set me free. Many people look at me today and see just a calm grandma, making cheese biscuits and smiling at the market. But few know the hell I went through when I was young. Few know that one day, the man who swore to love and protect me was the same man who sold me like merchandise. And all because of money, ambition, a cursed promotion. But before I get to that part of the story, let me go back to the beginning, back to childhood, when life was still innocent and full of dreams. I was born in Burlington, Vermont, on March 15, 1947, in a winter that would freeze your face off. Burlington, my dears, is the land of real cold, where the north wind cuts your cheeks and white frost covers the ground like sugar. It was a small city back then, surrounded by farms and fields, where people lived off dairy farming and maple syrup production. My father's name was Arthur Harrison Adams, a tall man with a thick mustache and calloused hands from so much work. He was a carpenter, worked at a lumber mill near downtown, and came home every day smelling of fresh wood and sawdust. My father was a serious man, of few words, but when he spoke, everyone listened. He had that firm way, that way of a man who commands and the family obeys. Back then, you know how it was. The father was the ultimate authority in the house, and we didn't even think to question it. My mother, Mary Louise Adams, was his opposite. She was all sweetness, all affection. Short, plump, with those rosy cheeks from living by the wood stove. My mother took care of the house, of us 5 children, and still sewed for others to help with expenses. I remember the sound of her sewing machine at night, click, 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 while we were already sleeping. She sewed dresses, pants, sheets, whatever came along. And during the day, she cooked those wonderful meals, beef stew with vegetables, baked beans with ham, apple pie, and that homemade bread that came out warm from the oven. I was the second of 5 siblings. The oldest was Leonard, a strong boy who helped my father at the mill from age 12. Then came me, Sandra. After me came Yvonne, then Oscar, and lastly Teresa, the baby of the family. We were poor, but we were close. We all slept squeezed together, 2 per bed, sharing patchwork quilts that my mother sewed with so much care. Our house was wooden, painted light blue, with a tin roof that made such a racket when it rained. It had 3 small bedrooms, a little living room with an old wicker sofa, a kitchen with a wood stove, and that big wooden table where we all ate together. In the backyard, there was a chicken coop, some rose bushes my mother loved, and way in the back was the outhouse, which in winter was a sacrifice to go to for God's sake. I remember in the morning, in winter, we'd wake up and the water in the basin had a layer of ice on top. We'd break the ice to wash our faces and run to get close to the wood stove that my mother had already lit. She'd heat water for us to take quick baths in an aluminum tub, all very fast because otherwise we'd freeze. Our games were simple. We played hide and seek in the empty lots, marbles in the dirt road, jump rope with old clothesline. In winter, when that heavy frost fell, we'd admire the ice on the grass, and when it snowed, oh, when it snowed it was a holiday. We'd go outside, catch that fine snow in our hands, make little snowmen, throw snowballs at each other. They were small joys, but they filled our hearts. I had a childhood friend named Geraldine who lived 3 houses down from ours. We were inseparable. We played house, played cooking. We'd pick little flowers from the field and make little crowns to put on our heads. We dreamed about the future, about marriage, about white dresses, about having little children. Back then, my dear, girls dreamed of getting married, of being housewives, of taking care of their husbands and children. That's what we saw. That's what we learned. My mother always taught me, Sandra, a woman needs to know how to take care of a home, cook well, sew, be domestic, because the man works outside and the woman takes care of the home. That's what God wants. That's how it has to be. And I, as a little girl, believed that with all my heart. I learned to cook with her from age 7. I'd sit on a stool next to the stove and watch her stir the pot roast, season the meat, make the rice. By 8, I already knew how to make bread. By 10, I was helping her sew. I was a domestic girl, as they said. My father said women had to be obedient, modest, had to bow their heads to their husbands. He'd say, "Mary, are you teaching these girls properly? Because I don't want my women becoming old maids or ill-spoken of." And my mother would respond, "Don't worry, Arthur, I'm raising them to be respectable wives." I went to school in the morning, at a small public school near home. I liked to study. I was a good student, especially in math. The teacher, Mrs. Henderson, said I had a good head for numbers. "This girl will go far," she'd say. But when I'd mention at home that I wanted to study more, wanted to go to high school, my father would say, "What for, Sandra? Women don't need too much education. You're going to get married, have children, take care of a home. That's men's business." And I, back then, accepted it. I didn't question. That's how the world worked. We went to church every Sunday at the First Presbyterian Church, downtown in Burlington. We'd go dressed up in our Sunday clothes, me and my sisters in little cotton dresses my mother sewed, and the boys in pants and shirts. After service, we'd stay in the town square, chatting with neighbors, watching people. Those were slower, simpler times. In winter, there was the Winter Carnival, which was the joy of the city. There were booths selling hot cider, roasted chestnuts, maple candy, apple fritters. There was music, dancing, and we'd have fun until nighttime. I loved eating warm maple candy, that sweet, sticky treat. It was delicious. But despite all this simplicity, all this childhood joy, I already felt, deep down, that there was something wrong with the way the world treated women. I saw my father command and my mother obey. I saw my father come home angry and yell, and my mother bow her head. I saw my brother Leonard able to go out, play ball, stay out late, while me and my sisters had to stay home, helping with chores. But I kept these doubts in my chest because I had no one to talk to about it. When I turned 12, my mother called me aside and said, "Sandra, now you're a young lady. You have to behave. You can't play with boys anymore. You can't climb trees anymore. You can't make a mess. You have to be a lady because otherwise people will talk badly about you." And so, my childhood was left behind, and I entered that world of rules, of demands, of having to be perfect to someday be worthy of a husband. When I turned 15 in 1962, things started to change at home. My brother Leonard had gotten a better job in Boston and had left. My father started drinking more, getting more nervous, more aggressive with my mother. Money was tight, the mill where he worked had closed, and he started doing carpentry jobs here and there, but earned little. My mother sewed day and night to help, and me and my sisters had to help even more at home. But stubborn as a mule, I didn't give up on school. I had finished elementary school and wanted to go to high school. My father said, "Sandra, forget this nonsense about school. You need to get a job as a housekeeper, help at home." But I insisted so much that my mother defended me. "Arthur, let the girl study. She's intelligent. She can have a better life than ours." And so, I managed to enroll in night school at a public high school downtown. I studied at night and worked during the day at a wealthy family's house, the Baker family, doing house cleaning and watching the children. I earned a pittance, but I saved every penny. My dream was to take an accounting course. I'd see those men in suits entering the offices downtown with their leather briefcases, and I'd think, one day I'll work like that, in clean clothes, working with numbers, not with a broom. When I turned 18 in 1965, I finished high school. And then, my dears, I made the boldest decision of my life up to that point. I enrolled in a technical accounting program in Boston. My father was furious. "You're going to leave home, alone, to that big city? You're going to get lost. You'll become a loose woman." He yelled, pounded the table, said he was going to lock me in the house. But my brother Leonard, who had been living in Boston for 3 years, offered me shelter. "Sandra, come live with me and my wife. You sleep on the couch, help with expenses, and study. I'll help you." And so I went. I left Burlington with a cardboard suitcase, some clothes, and a heart full of dreams and fears. Boston in 1965 was still a bustling city, but for me, coming from Burlington, it seemed enormous. I was dazzled by the buildings, the movement, the opportunities. I studied at night in the accounting program and worked during the day in a fabric store downtown as a salesgirl. I was good with numbers, with accounts, and soon the store owner started asking me to help with the register, with invoices. It was around this time, in 1967, when I was 20 years old, that I met Kevin Michael Anderson. He walked into the store where I worked, looking for fabric for his mother to make a curtain. He was handsome, tall, hair slicked back with pomade, wide smile, light eyes. He wore a dress shirt and tailored pants, and had a confident manner, the way of a man who knows what he wants. He started talking to me, asking about the fabrics, but I noticed he was really flirting with me. In the end, he bought the fabric, but asked my name. "Sandra," I said, all embarrassed. "What a beautiful name," he replied. "Can I come back tomorrow to buy something else?" And I, silly me, smiled and said yes. Kevin came back the next day, and the next, and the next. He always invented an excuse to enter the store, buy something, talk to me. Until one day he asked me out. "Sandra, want to get ice cream on Sunday afternoon?" I got nervous, my heart beat fast, but I said yes. We started dating. He took me to the movies, to the park, to the harbor. He was attentive, affectionate, gave me flowers, treated me like a princess. He worked as a salesman at an appliance store and was always talking about his dreams. Sandra, I'm not going to be selling refrigerators my whole life. I'm going to move up. I'll be a manager. I'll have my own business. I'm going to be rich. You'll see. I thought that was wonderful. A man with ambition, with dreams, who wanted to succeed in life. I thought, he'll give me a good life, a nice house, security. I didn't see that his ambition was sick. That money was more important to him than anything else. We dated for 2 years. In 1969, when I turned 22 and finished my accounting program, Kevin proposed to me. He knelt on the beach at Cape Cod with a simple silver ring and said, "Sandra May Adams, will you marry me and build an empire with me?" I, moved to tears, crying, said yes. We got married in October 1969 in a small ceremony at St. Peter's Church in Boston. My family came from Burlington, my father still scowling, but my mother crying with joy. We rented a tiny one-bedroom apartment in the Cambridge area and started our married life. At first, everything was beautiful. I got a job at a small accounting firm, working with balance sheets, invoices, taxes. I earned reasonably well, and Kevin was also selling well at the store. We saved money, dreamed of owning our own home, having children. But gradually, I started to notice changes in Kevin. He'd get irritated when he saw rich people driving by in imported cars. He complained about his job, said he deserved more, that he was better than his colleagues. He started talking obsessively about money, about success, about status. In 1970, when I was 23, Kevin got a new job at a multinational that had just opened a branch in Boston. It was an American company, chemicals, and they paid very well. Kevin was euphoric. "Sandra, this is it. This is the company where I'm going to grow. I'll become a manager, then director, and we'll have everything we've always wanted." He started working at that company with an energy I'd never seen. He'd leave home at 7 in the morning and return at 10 at night. He brought work home. He was always talking about the bosses, especially Mr. Arnold Miller, the owner of the branch, a wealthy German who had come from the Midwest to run the operation. "Mr. Miller has everything, Sandra," Kevin would say, with his eyes shining. "He has a 3-story house in the suburbs, has an imported car, travels to Europe every year. And you know what he told me? That I have potential, that he's watching me for a promotion." I was happy to see my husband excited, but there was something about the way he talked that bothered me. It was as if he was obsessed, as if nothing else mattered besides growing in that company, impressing Mr. Miller. One day, in April 1971, Kevin came home and gave me a red dress. Long, elegant, very expensive. "A gift for you, honey," he said, all smiling. I was surprised. "But Kevin, we're saving money for our own house. Why did you spend so much?" He hugged me and said, "Because you'll need a beautiful dress. Mr. Miller invited us to a special dinner at a fancy hotel. It's my chance to impress him, to show that I have a beautiful, elegant wife, that I'm the right man to become commercial director." I put on the dress, looked at myself in the mirror, and felt beautiful. But deep down, there was a strange feeling, a tightness in my chest that I couldn't explain. It was as if that dress wasn't to make me feel beautiful for myself or for my husband. It was to make me an object of exhibition, a piece in his ambition game. "You'll be gorgeous, Sandra," Kevin said, looking me up and down. "Mr. Miller always comments that you're beautiful. He'll love to see you in this dress." And right then, my dears, I felt a chill. Why was my husband's boss commenting about me? Why was it important that he found me beautiful? But I pushed those thoughts away. I trusted Kevin. He was my husband. He loved me. He would never do anything to hurt me. Or at least, that's what I wanted to believe. In the following days, Kevin became even more anxious. He rehearsed what he was going to say at dinner, asked me to repeat names of important company clients, instructed me on how to behave. "Sandra, be nice, smile a lot, let Mr. Miller talk, compliment him, do your part, and I'll do mine." Do my part? Those words sounded strange to me, but I was young, I was naive. I still thought the wife's role was to support her husband in everything. I couldn't imagine, not in my worst nightmares, what he had planned for that night. On the night of April 24th, 1971, a cold spring night in Boston, Kevin spent the entire afternoon getting ready. He was nervous, anxious, put on cologne after cologne, fixed his hair 1,000 times in the mirror. I also got ready. I put on the red dress he had bought, put on lipstick, fixed my hair in an updo I had seen in a magazine. I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, I'm going to make my husband proud of me. Kevin called a fancy taxi, something we never did because it was too expensive. We went to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, a 5-star hotel near the Common. When the taxi stopped in front of that enormous building, illuminated with a doorman in uniform and red carpet at the entrance, my heart raced. I had never entered such a fancy place in my life. Kevin held my hand, but his hand was sweaty, trembling. "Is everything okay, honey?" I asked. He forced a smile. "Everything's perfect, Sandra. Today is the day that changes our lives." We went up to the 10th floor, the top of the hotel. Kevin had the key to the room. When he opened the door to the presidential suite, I almost fainted from so much beauty. It was a place of luxury I had never seen even in movies. There was a huge living room with a burgundy velvet sofa, a marble coffee table, crystal chandelier on the ceiling. The windows went from floor to ceiling and showed the city lights below. There was a small table already set with champagne chilled in a silver bucket, crystal glasses, and a platter of chocolate-covered strawberries. "My God, Kevin, how elegant," I said, amazed. "Mr. Miller does things with class," he replied, but his voice came out strange, hoarse. I looked at him. "When is he arriving? Isn't dinner at 8? Kevin looked at his wristwatch. It was 7:45. "He's coming up now," Kevin said, and suddenly grabbed the car keys from his pocket. "Honey, I forgot an important document in the car. I'll go down real quick to get it. Be back in a minute." He walked to the door. I said, "But Kevin, Mr. Miller is going to arrive and you won't be here to receive him?" Kevin stopped at the door, with his back to me, and was silent for a few seconds that seemed like an eternity. Then he turned to me. And in that moment, my dears, I saw on his face an expression I had never seen before. It wasn't love. It wasn't affection. It was greed. It was coldness. It was as if I had stopped being his wife and become a thing, an object, merchandise. "Sandra," he said, and his voice came out hard, emotionless. "Mr. Miller, he's going to arrive alone. The dinner, it's just with you and him." My heart stopped. "What do you mean? And you?" Kevin swallowed hard. "I'll be waiting in the lobby, in the hotel bar." My world started to crumble right then. "Kevin, what are you saying? I'm not going to stay alone in a hotel room with your boss. This isn't right." I got up from the sofa, started walking toward him. But he raised his hand, as if to stop me. "Sandra, don't make this complicated. Mr. Miller has always liked you, since the first time he saw you when you came to pick me up from work. He's commented several times that you're beautiful, elegant, special." My voice came out trembling. "And what does that have to do with me staying alone with him in a hotel room?" Kevin sighed, impatient. He walked over close to me, grabbed my shoulders hard, and looked deep into my eyes. "Honey, listen. Mr. Miller has the power to make me commercial director. The position is open, but he needs to trust me. He needs to see that I'm a man who does whatever it takes to grow. A man who isn't petty, who isn't jealous, who understands how the world works." I started to tremble. "Kevin, for God's sake, what are you trying to say?" He squeezed my shoulders harder. "I'm saying you're going to stay here. You're going to be nice to him. You're going to let him get to know you better. It's just one night, Sandra. One small night in exchange for a lifetime of wealth, of comfort. Think about the house we'll have, the car, the trips." I pushed him hard, stepped back. "Are you crazy? You want your boss to... Kevin, you're selling me." Tears started falling. He got nervous, looked at his watch again. Don't be dramatic, Sandra. It's not selling. It's just a favor, a business game. Everyone does this. Executives' wives, businessmen's wives, they all do this when necessary. That's how the world works. I'm not doing this, I screamed. Kevin got angry. He walked quickly to me, grabbed me by the arm, hard, dragged me to the armchair, and pushed me to sit. You will do it, yes, because you're my wife and you owe me obedience. I took you from that life as a housekeeper. I gave you a home. I support you. I work, Kevin. I earn my own money, I shouted back, trying to get up. But he pushed me back into the armchair. Your salary doesn't even pay half the rent. You live off my money, and now I need you to do your part. I was in shock, shaking, crying. Kevin took a deep breath, tried to calm his voice. Sandra, honey, it doesn't have to be like this. Think carefully. It's just today. Tomorrow we forget, and our life changes. I love you, you know that. But I also love our future, and you're not going to ruin everything because of silly jealousy. Before I could respond, he quickly left the room and slammed the door. I ran to the door, tried to open it, but it wouldn't open. He had locked it from the outside. I banged on the door, screamed, Kevin, open this door, Kevin! But I only heard his footsteps walking away down the hallway. I was there, locked in that luxurious room that suddenly became a prison. I walked around the suite, looking for another exit, but there wasn't one. The windows didn't open. I was trapped. My husband had locked me in there to be used by his boss. I sat on the floor, leaned my back against the wall and cried. I cried from anger, from humiliation, from despair. How had I been so stupid? How hadn't I seen that the man I loved was capable of doing something like this? He had turned me into a bargaining chip, into a tool for him to get a promotion. I thought about jumping through the window, but they were sealed. I thought about breaking something, making a scene, but I was afraid that no one would believe me, afraid they'd think I was crazy, hysterical. Back then, my dears, a man's word was worth more than a woman's. If I screamed, if I reported it, they'd say that I had set it up, that I was a gold digger, that I was shameless. I stayed there, sitting on the floor, shaking, for about 10 minutes, until I heard the sound of the key in the lock. The door opened slowly, and he entered. Mr. Arnold Miller, a man about 55 years old, pot-bellied, sweaty, with thick glasses. He wore an expensive suit, but his tie was already loose, his shirt half unbuttoned. He entered, locked the door again behind him, and stood looking at me with a disgusting smile. Good evening, Sandra, he said with that heavy German accent. Your husband said you're a special woman, said you're intelligent, beautiful, and that you know how to value opportunities. He started walking toward me. I got up from the floor, backed up until I was against the wall. Mr. Miller, this is a mistake. My husband, he had no right to put me in this situation. I'm a married woman. I'm respectable. My voice came out weak, trembling. He laughed. Respectable? Sandra, your husband brought you here, dressed you like a call girl, and left you for me. Don't come to me with this story of respectability. He took off his jacket, threw it on the bed, started unbuttoning his shirt. Relax. The more you resist, the worse it'll be. Think of it as work, a wife's obligation. You want your husband to succeed, don't you? So cooperate. He smiled and started taking off his belt. It was at that moment, my dears, that the fear inside me turned to anger. A cold, calculated anger. I looked at him, took a deep breath, and something inside me changed. I wasn't going to be a victim, not of them, not of anyone. I had something they didn't know about. A secret. A weapon. Mr. Miller continued approaching me, now with his shirt completely open, showing that white, hairy belly. He had taken off his shoes, was only in socks, pants, and that disgusting smile on his face. I was cornered between him and the wall, with nowhere to run. Please, Mr. Miller, I tried again, my voice coming out in supplication. You're a married man. You have a family. You have a reputation. This doesn't need to happen. I promise I won't tell anyone. Let me leave, please. My legs were shaking so much I could barely stand. He stopped in front of me, so close I could smell the whiskey and cigarettes on his breath. Sandra, Sandra, you still don't understand? You're not leaving. You came here to do a job. Your husband has already been paid in advance. I gave him a bonus of 3 months' salary this afternoon. So, technically, you're already mine. I already paid for you. Those words hit me like a punch in the stomach. Kevin had already received money. He had really sold me. It wasn't just a promise of a future promotion. He had already put the money in his pocket. I was, literally, merchandise bought and paid for. I started crying uncontrollably. My whole body was shaking. I thought about my mother, my childhood, the time she told me that the husband is in charge, that the woman has to obey, that the wife's role is to make her husband happy. Was this it? Did I have to accept this humiliation because it was my role? Mr. Miller started taking off his belt, and at that moment something inside me exploded. I screamed. I screamed with all the strength of my lungs. Help! Someone help me! I'm being attacked! Help! Mr. Miller turned red with rage. He raised his hand and slapped me across the face, hard, making my head turn to the side and my lips split. I tasted blood in my mouth. "Shut up, you whore!" he yelled. "You think anyone's going to hear you? This is the presidential suite. The walls are soundproof. And even if someone heard, I own this whole damn place. I'm Mr. Arnold Miller. Who do you think they'll believe? Me, a respected businessman, or you, some little slut whose husband brought to please me?" He was right, and I knew it. No one was going to help me. I was completely alone in that room, at the mercy of that monster. I looked around, desperate, looking for anything I could use to defend myself. A vase, an ashtray, anything. But there was nothing within reach. I thought about throwing myself at him, scratching, biting, fighting. But he was bigger, stronger. I thought about running to the bathroom and locking myself in there, but he'd break down the door. I thought about pretending to faint, to get sick, but he'd probably abuse me anyway. I was without exit, completely without exit. Mr. Miller saw the despair on my face and smiled, satisfied. "There we go. Now you understand. There's no use fighting, my dear. Just accept it, relax, and this will be over quickly." He put his hand on his pants zipper and started to lower it. At that moment, my dears, I felt like I was going to die. Not die physically, but die inside. I felt that if that happened, I would never be the same person again. I would become an empty shell, a broken doll, a shadow of what I was. I would carry that mark forever, that humiliation, that pain. And it was precisely at that moment, at my lowest, darkest, most desperate moment, that I had a vision. It wasn't really a vision. It was a memory so vivid it seemed real. I saw myself as a little girl, about 7 years old, sitting on my mother's lap in the kitchen in Burlington. She was combing my hair, making braids, and humming a lullaby. And then I remembered something she had told me once, when I was about 10 and had been beaten up by some older girls at school. I had come home crying, with my dress torn and my knee scraped. My mother had cleaned my wounds, given me a glass of warm milk, and said, "Sandra, my daughter, the world is cruel to women. But you know what makes a woman survive? It's not physical strength, it's not beauty, it's intelligence, it's cleverness. It's knowing how to use your head to protect yourself when fists don't help. You're intelligent, my daughter, more intelligent than many people. Never forget that. When you feel weak, remember that your head is your greatest weapon. My greatest weapon. My head. My intelligence." And then I remembered. I remembered what I had in my purse. In recent months, Kevin had brought home various company documents. He'd asked me to help him review spreadsheets, check numbers, organize paperwork. He thought I was just a dumb helper, just copying numbers. But I was a trained accountant. I understood accounting, finances, fraud, and I had seen it. My God, I had seen so much wrong in those documents. Embezzlement, false invoices, shell companies, offshore accounts, and Mr. Miller was in everything. He and Kevin had been stealing from the American headquarters for years, millions and millions of dollars diverted. I had been shocked when I discovered it. I had even thought about telling Kevin that he could be arrested for that. But then I realized he knew. Of course he knew. He was involved with Mr. Miller up to his neck. And then, 2 weeks ago, when Kevin started acting strange, talking obsessively about this dinner, about impressing Mr. Miller, I had a premonition. I can't explain it, but I was afraid that Kevin was planning something involving me. So I started making copies. Secretly, at the office where I worked, after hours, I copied everything. Printed emails that Kevin left lying around, spreadsheets, bank statements, incriminating documents. I put everything in a thick manila envelope. And that afternoon, before leaving home for the damn dinner, I put that envelope inside my purse. I don't know why. It was instinct. It was intuition. And there was also a photo. A photo that a coworker had given me a few months ago, laughing, thinking it was funny. It was a photo of Mr. Miller entering a well-known Boston motel with his secretary, a blonde woman in her early 20s. My colleague had accidentally taken the photo when she drove past the motel. "Look at the big boss having fun," she had said. I had kept the photo, not knowing that one day it would be useful. All of this was in the envelope, inside my purse. The purse that was there on the armchair 3 meters away from me. Mr. Miller was now only in his underwear and socks, coming toward me with that disgusting body, that expression of absolute power. He thought he had won, that I was his. But at that moment, I took a deep breath. I dried my tears. I licked the blood from my split lip. And I felt the anger, that cold, calculated, intelligent anger, take over my entire being. I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to be revenge. I raised my hand in a firm gesture, like a teacher telling a student to stop. "Mr. Miller," I said, and my voice came out different, no longer trembling, no longer supplicating, cold, hard. "Before you lay a finger on me, you need to see something." He stopped, confused. The sick excitement on his face gave way to curiosity. "What? You want to show me what? Are you going to undress yourself?" "Good girl." "No," I said, walking slowly to the armchair where my purse was. "I'm going to show you what's inside this envelope." I opened my purse, took out the thick manila envelope, and threw it on the bed in front of him. He looked at the envelope, then at me, suspicious. "What is this? A love letter? A gift?" He was trying to make a joke, but I saw the doubt in his eyes. "Open it," I said, crossing my arms. "Open it, and you'll understand why touching me is the last thing you'll want to do." And he, curious, picked up the envelope, opened it, and started pulling out the papers from inside. First one, then another. Then another. I saw the color drain from his face, saw the sweat start dripping down his forehead, saw his hands start to tremble. Because there, on those sheets, was the whole truth. All the dirt, all the rot that he and my husband had built. Mr. Miller continued pulling papers from the envelope, one by one, and I saw the despair grow on his face with each second. He picked up the first spreadsheet, a bank statement from a phantom account in the Bahamas in the name of a company that didn't exist. Then he picked up another, a series of emails between him and Kevin arranging kickback amounts from suppliers. Then another, false invoices for purchases that never happened. His hands were shaking so much that the papers made noise. Shh, shh, shh. He looked at me, then at the papers, then at me again. The color had completely disappeared from his face. That arrogant, powerful man, who 5 minutes ago was undressing to violate me now, looked like a scared little mouse. Where did you get this?" he stuttered, his voice coming out thin, almost a squeak. This is forgery. You doctored these documents." I took a step toward him, firm, with my head held high. The victim had become the hunter. Forgery! Mr. Miller, these are copies of real documents that you and my husband left scattered around our house. I'm a trained accountant, remember? I know how to recognize fraud when I see it. And this here, I pointed to the papers in his hand. This here is fraud of millions of dollars. International embezzlement, tax evasion, money laundering, crimes that carry at minimum 20 years in prison. He let the papers fall to the floor, put his hands on his head. No, this can't be happening. He started pacing back and forth, desperate in his underwear and socks, sweating cold. All that powerful man pose had crumbled. He was pathetic. But I wasn't done yet. There's more, Mr. Miller. Get that photo from the envelope. He, trembling, got the photo. And when he saw it, him entering the tropical motel with the blonde secretary, her laughing, clinging to his arm, he let out a moan of despair. My God! My God! Your wife, Mrs. Brunhild, doesn't she own half the company shares? I asked, already knowing the answer. And isn't she a devout evangelical, one of those who doesn't tolerate infidelity? Imagine when she receives this photo in the mail, along with documents proving you diverted her fortune to offshore accounts. Mr. Miller sat down on the bed, his head in his hands. He was having a panic attack. He was breathing fast, panting. Please, Sandra, we can negotiate. I'll give you money, whatever you want. I'll make you a partner in the company. I laughed. A cold laugh, without joy. Money? You think I want your dirty money after you tried to rape me? After my husband sold me to you like I was cattle? I bent down, picked up the papers from the floor, put them back in the envelope. No, Mr. Miller, I don't want your money. I want your freedom. He raised his head, his eyes red. What do you mean? I took a deep breath and dropped the final bomb. These here are just copies. The original documents, the real emails, the original bank statements, the signed invoices are all stored in a safe at my lawyer's office, Mr. Humphrey Ferris. And there's more. I've already sent a registered letter to the IRS in Washington with copies of all this, and another letter, identical, to your wife's home address, Mrs. Brunhilde Miller. The color that had drained from his face now gave way to a sickly purple. He jumped up. You did what? You're crazy. You're going to destroy us. You'll destroy your husband. You'll destroy yourself. Calm down, Mr. Miller, I said, with a coldness I didn't even know I had inside me. The letters will only be opened if I don't call Mr. Humphrey tomorrow at 9 in the morning to say I'm okay. I arranged with him. If I don't call, he opens the safe and hands everything over to the police, to the IRS, and personally to your wife. But if I do call... I made a dramatic pause. He burns everything, and your lives continue, intact. Mr. Miller stood there processing the information. He was dumb, but not that much. He understood what I was saying. You want me to let you leave, without touching you. Is that it? Exactly, I said. You open that door now, let me out, and tomorrow morning I call Mr. Humphrey and destroy the evidence. But if you lay one finger on me, if you try to stop me from leaving, if you do anything I don't like, tomorrow at 9:30 all the FBI, all the IRS, and your evangelical wife will be knocking on your door. I was bluffing, my dears, at least partly. I didn't have any lawyer. I hadn't sent any letter to the IRS or to his wife. I had made the copies, yes, and I had kept the originals in a safe place, in my co-worker's locker, who didn't even know what was in there. But the rest was bluff. Pure bluff. But he believed it. Because powerful men, used to commanding, can't imagine that a little woman is capable of architecting such a well-planned revenge. They think we're stupid. And it was precisely their arrogance that saved me. Mr. Miller stood there for about 10 seconds that seemed like an eternity. I saw his mind working, calculating the options. And then, defeated, He walked to the door and unlocked it. But before he opened it, I spoke. "Oh, and Mr. Miller? Just to be clear, if you or my husband try to find me, threaten me, or lay a finger on me after tonight, I'm going straight to the police. And then there won't be any deal. Understood?" He nodded, downcast, opened the door. And I left that room with my head held high, the envelope under my arm, and my heart beating so hard I thought it was going to jump out of my mouth. I walked down the hotel hallway, my legs shaky but steady. I was almost at the elevator when I heard, coming from back there, a desperate scream. "Kevin! Kevin! You imbecile! She knows everything! The bitch knows everything!" I turned around and saw the most pathetic and satisfying scene of my life. Mr. Arnold Miller, a man in his 50s, fat, in white underwear, black socks, no shirt, no pants, running down the hotel hallway like a madman, screaming desperate, holding his underwear with one hand so they wouldn't fall. Some room doors opened. Guests poked their heads out, curious, scared. An elderly lady screamed. A couple started laughing. Mr. Miller ran past me without even looking, ran down the emergency stairs, still screaming, "Kevin, where are you? We're screwed!" I continued walking to the elevator. I pressed the button, and when the doors opened, there he was. Kevin, my husband. He was getting out of the elevator, coming toward the 10th floor, probably to check if everything was okay. When he saw me there, standing, in the red dress, the envelope under my arm, and that cold expression on my face, he froze. "Sandra, honey, what happened? Why are you leaving? Is dinner over already?" I looked into his eyes, those eyes that I had loved, those eyes that had promised me eternal love, and I saw in them only lies, greed, and cowardice. I took off my wedding ring, that silver ring he had given me on the beach at Cape Cod 2 years ago, and threw it hard at his chest. The ring hit his jacket and fell to the hallway floor, making that metallic sound, clink. "You wanted a promotion, Kevin?" I said, my voice coming out hard, cutting. "Congratulations, you've been promoted to single, promoted to unemployed, and if I'm lucky, promoted to prisoner." He turned white. "Sandra, what are you talking about? What crazy talk is this?" Right then, we heard Mr. Miller's screams echoing in the hallway, coming from the stairwell. Kevin looked to the side, saw his boss, half naked, desperate, running like crazy, and he understood. "Sandra, wait. We can talk. I can explain." He tried to grab my arm, but I took a step back. "Don't touch me. Never again. I know everything, Kevin. About the fraud, the diverted money, the offshore accounts, and especially, I know you sold me for 3 months' salary. You turned your wife into a prostitute to get a promotion." Tears started falling from my eyes, but they weren't tears of weakness. They were tears of rage. "I loved you, I trusted you, and you sold me." Kevin fell to his knees in the hallway. "Sandra, forgive me, forgive me. I did this for us, for our future, for—" "Shut up," I said. "There's no more us. There's no more future. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to a lawyer and filing for divorce. And you and your boss better pray hard that I don't turn you both over to the FBI." I got into the elevator. I pressed the button for the lobby. The doors started to close, and the last thing I saw was Kevin there, on his knees on the floor, crying, and Mr. Miller running up, still in his underwear, yelling at him. When I left the hotel, the cold night breeze hit my face. I breathed deeply, filling my lungs with fresh air, with freedom. I had entered that hotel as a victim, and was leaving as a survivor, as a warrior. In the days following that April night in 1971, my life turned upside down. Kevin tried to find me several times, knocking on the door of the apartment where I still lived, begging forgiveness, saying he had been weak, that he had let himself be carried away by ambition. But I didn't open the door, not once. 3 days after that night, Mr. Arnold Miller fled from the United States. I learned later, from company colleagues, that he took a flight to Argentina with the blonde secretary, taking what he could rescue from offshore accounts before anyone discovered. His wife, Mrs. Brunhild, stayed in Boston and immediately filed for divorce. It seems she had suspected his affairs for years. As for Kevin, he was fired from the multinational a week later. The American headquarters sent auditors to investigate operations in Boston, and although I never officially turned over the evidence, they discovered everything on their own. Kevin wasn't arrested. There wasn't enough evidence against him specifically, but he was blacklisted in the market. No one else wanted to hire a man accused of fraud. I filed for divorce in May 1971, and it was granted in August of the same year for abandonment and betrayal. I didn't want anything from him. No alimony, no division of assets, because we didn't have anything anyway. I just wanted my maiden name back and my freedom. But something unexpected happened. In June 1971, a lawyer contacted me. He represented Mrs. Brunhilde Miller, Mr. Arnold's ex-wife. She had discovered that I was the woman who had made her husband run in his underwear through the hotel. The story had spread through Boston's social circles. And instead of hating me, she wanted to thank me. Mrs. Brunhild called me to a meeting at her lawyer's office. When I arrived, nervous, thinking I was going to be sued, she hugged me. "Thank you," she said, crying. "Thank you for freeing me from that horrible man. I knew he was stealing, that he was cheating on me, but I didn't have the courage to leave. You gave me that courage." And then she made me a proposal. She had recovered part of the money Mr. Arnold had diverted, about $300,000, and she wanted to give me $50,000 as a freedom gift. I refused at first, but she insisted. "Sandra, you saved me from a miserable marriage. Accept it. Use this money to start over, far from here, far from these bad memories." And that's how, in September 1971, at 24 years old, I left Boston with a suitcase of clothes and $50,000 in my pocket. I didn't know where to go. I just knew I needed to go far, very far. I took a bus with no certain destination. I stopped in New York, then in Philadelphia, then in various small towns in Pennsylvania and Virginia, until in October 1971, I got off at a bus stop in Asheville, North Carolina. I had read about this city in a magazine, a city of mountain air, good climate, calm, peaceful. A healing city, they said, and I needed to heal. I rented a small room in a boarding house and started looking for work. I got a job at a small accounting firm and started saving money. 2 years later, in 1973, I opened my own accounting office, Sandra Adams Accounting and Consulting. It was tiny, just me and a secretary, but it was mine, built with my sweat, my intelligence, my strength. I worked at that office for 32 years. I had wonderful clients, helped dozens of small business owners organize their finances. In 1978, I met a good man, a widower named Walter, who owned a bakery. We dated for 5 years, lived together for 10, but never married on paper. I didn't want to marry again, and he respected that. Walter passed away in 1993 from a heart attack, but gave me 15 years of companionship, respect, true love. With Walter, I didn't have biological children. But I helped raise his 3 children from his first marriage, Maurice, Gilda, and Junior. They called me Aunt Sandra and treated me like a mother. Today they're adults, have their own families, and gave me 7 grandchildren of the heart. These boys and girls come to my house, call me Grandma, eat my cheese biscuits, fill my life with joy. In 2005, when I turned 58, I retired from the accounting office. And that's when I decided to return to my roots, to what my mother had taught me back in Burlington, cooking. I started making cheese biscuits to sell at the farmer's market and discovered that this made me happy. Happy in a simple, pure way, without complications. Today, at 78 years old, here in Asheville, my routine is peaceful and full of purpose. I wake up at 5 in the morning every Saturday, light the oven, and make my cheese biscuits. I take them to the market, sell everything, chat with customers, exchange recipes with the other bakers. I come home at the end of the morning, have lunch watching my soap opera, and in the afternoon I receive visits from my grandchildren who come to eat cake and hear my stories. My little house is small, 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen, and a little backyard where I grow mint, basil, and rosemary. I don't have luxury. I don't have an imported car. I don't have a mansion. But I have peace. I have dignity. I have love. Sometimes when I'm alone at night, stirring a pot of dulce de leche on the stove, I think about that 24-year-old girl, locked in a hotel room, thinking the world had ended. And I think about how strong she was, how she used her head, not her fists, how she transformed pain into power. I never saw Kevin again. I heard through others that he went back to Vermont, became an insurance salesman, remarried, had children. I hope he became a better man. But that doesn't matter to me anymore. That chapter of my life is closed, locked, buried. What matters is that I survived. I won. I rebuilt my life from scratch in a city that welcomed me, with people who respect me for what I am, not for what I went through. And when I see my granddaughters, strong and intelligent girls, studying, working, being in charge of their own lives, I think it was worth it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of fear, it was worth it. Because I helped build a world where they won't have to go through what I went through. My dears who have followed me this far, I need to look you in the eyes now and say something very important. If you're in a relationship where you feel like merchandise, where your partner uses you to get something, where you're treated as a bargaining chip, you're not crazy. You're not exaggerating, and you don't have to accept this. Because you see, what happened to me that April night in 1971 wasn't just a common betrayal. It was a violation of my dignity as a human being. Kevin didn't betray me with another woman. He sold me. He put a price on my head, my body, my soul. And that, my loves, that has no forgiveness, that has no justification. It doesn't matter if it's for money, for promotion, for status, for nothing. Nobody has the right to negotiate with another person's dignity. And I learned that night the most important lesson of my life. When fists don't work, when physical strength doesn't help, when you're cornered with no way out, use your head. I defeated 2 powerful men not with screams, not with violence, but with intelligence. I used what I knew, what I had observed, what I had documented, and that was my salvation. So if you're going through something similar, whether it's emotional abuse, psychological manipulation, blackmail, any kind of control that makes you feel small, document. Keep evidence, take photos, save messages, record conversations, write down dates, because when you need to defend yourself, when you need to prove your truth, that evidence will be your most powerful weapon. And another thing, don't wait to be saved. Don't wait for someone to come rescue you. Because sometimes, my dear, sometimes the only person who can save you is yourself. That's how it was for me. There was no Prince Charming, no knight in shining armor. There was a 24-year-old woman, terrified but smart, who used the brain God gave her to turn the tables. And after you free yourself, because you will free yourself, don't be afraid to start over. I left Boston not knowing where to go, with a suitcase of clothes and money in my pocket, but with my head held high. And look where I ended up. A simple life, but dignified. A life poor in money, but rich in peace. My dears, I want to make a special request of you now. If you made it this far in this story, if you felt in your chest the pain I felt, the anger I felt, but also the victory I achieved, I need you to do something for me. Click that red subscribe button now and turn on that notification bell. Because this story I told you today, it needs to reach more women. It needs to reach that girl who's being manipulated by her boyfriend, that wife who's being controlled by her husband, that young woman who thinks love means accepting humiliation. Every subscription to this channel, is one more woman who will hear that she deserves respect, that she is not merchandise, that she has power, and that, my loves, that can save lives. So subscribe, turn on the bell, and help me spread this message of liberation. And now, do me a favor. Come to the comments and write just one word. One word that represents what you felt hearing this story. It could be strength, it could be courage, it could be rage, it could be freedom, it could be justice. Any word that touched your heart. I'm going to read each one, and I'm going to respond to each one of you, because you're not just numbers to me. You're companions on this journey of healing. Do it now, don't wait another minute. Because while you're reading this, there's someone out there who needs to hear that they're not alone. A kiss to each of your hearts. And remember, you are worthy of respect, worthy of true love, and worthy of a life in peace. Until the next story, my loves. This is Grandparents' Tales, and I'll see you in the next video.